All right, we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend. Thanks so much for stopping by. This is the 100th live stream here since I started counting them this way. And so excited to hang out with you guys here tonight. Like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who has a username there with the green usernames. Those are the members. So as anyone who does a super chat and a super thanks, any of that kind of stuff, always gets that priority answering as well. If you'd also like that priority answering, there's always a join button here to become a member and get that as well. But I see we have a bunch of people already joined in, and happy to see everyone in here. And I see Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thank you so much for kicking off the night here with gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Happy to see some familiar faces and some new ones as well there. Hopefully able to get those memberships. And yeah, so I see also Grand has been a member for 8 months now. Thanks so much, Grand, for the support all these months. I really appreciate it. And so we have Harsha, Brian, Theodore, Anthony, Linda, B. Mitchell, and Double Strike, Danny, Cars, Raphael, and so many others as well. Thank you all so much, Luke, Jordan. Thanks everyone for stopping by. So I see Harsha says, bad driver of the week. I was turning left onto my college campus and a lady in a bright blue 2012 to 2019 Volkswagen Beetle jumped a red light and almost hit a motorcycle head on. She then turned around and fled. Yikes, that's wild. Yeah, it's always crazy to see accidents or near accidents. And I feel like it's that time of year now where people are getting a little, it's warmer outside. People are getting a little excited and driving a little faster, being a little crazier. And yeah, but glad they didn't actually hit anybody. That's nuts. And Theodore says, what's my opinion on the new 01? I think it's awesome. I am hopefully going to drive it maybe this year. We'll see what happens. But I mean, it's, an incredible bang for your dollar as far as having over 1,000 horsepower at that, price point is impressive. And Anthony says no cool spots for him this week, but at least it was nice weather. I agree. It's been great having some really nice weather here for the past few days, and it looks like this coming week it's going to be like into the 60s around here, might even crack 70, which is wild. So I'm excited for that. And Linda says, good evening all, I'm missing an hour's sleep. Yawn. How about y'all? Yeah, I know. Same here. Yeah, definitely a little rough for the spring forward, losing the hour of sleep, but we'll get our caffeinated beverages and keep on going. At least I will. Feel free to go to bed early, Linda. But B. Mitchell says, weather's darn nice here in Minot, North Dakota. Also 58 degrees Fahrenheit and still light enough outside to sit on the porch / loading dock at the man camp. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to get the extra little bit of daylight too. And Grant wants his hour back. He says, no car spots this week. Wasn't feeling well, so I stayed in as much as possible. Yeah, sorry to hear you weren't feeling great. My daughter had a stomach bug this weekend, so our weekend we were laying low and not doing a whole lot either. But thankfully, knock on wood, it seems like me and Beth dodged whatever stomach bug it was, and hopefully it'll be all good. And thankfully, my daughter's feeling better too. So just was one of those kind of lay low weekends for me as well. Double Strike says, good evening, Matt. Hope you guys are doing well. It's been a lot of driving time this week with a few 4-hour trips. So glad at least there wasn't snow everywhere. Nice. Well, yeah, hopefully it was at least nice weather for the road trips. I personally love road trips, and I'm looking forward to doing, I think, a lot more this year than I typically do. And so hopefully you enjoyed them too. And B. Mitchell says, most interesting car spot was an S550 Shelby GT500 in Performance Blue, parked in the back of the parking lot next to a snow pile in Grand Forks, North Dakota. We call that cabin fever around here. That's funny. Well, kudos to them for getting out their GT500, the first sign of warmth. That's awesome. I'm sure they were definitely having that cabin fever and had to get out that car. It's funny. Danny says hello, and I was in my town's St. Patrick's Day parade today for the marching band. That's awesome. Hope you had a good time. Also, there was a DMC DeLorean in the parade. My unusual spot this week was a 1984 Chevy Cavalier Coupe. Nice spot. And that's cool. There was a DeLorean. Those are always fun. I feel like they make great parade vehicles too, especially if they're done up with the Back to the Future stuff. Cars, yeah, thanks for saying hi. And let me see. Grant showing his appreciation for the Cavaliers there. Vishal, thanks for being a member for 11 months now and for stopping by. He says, how's it going, Matt? My parents upgraded the 21 Highlander to a 25 TX 350 Premium yesterday. Absolutely love the car. Lexus nailed the TX. I agree, and great choice on their part, and congrats to them on that. Yeah, TXs are great. I see a ton of them around here. It's the car that Lexus needed for a long time. So I'm glad that your parents are enjoying it, and just glad that Lexus finally got that out there. I think the dealers are very relieved, and it is very well done. It's probably one of my absolute favorites in that segment, just from a size standpoint. You can't beat it, Let me see. Raphael, thanks for saying hi too. And Cara says, I spotted a Dodge Dart Rally today. Nice. So it was the Rally. I can't remember the trim of that, unless you're talking about the old darts. I'm not sure whether that's old or new. I think they did a Rally package for the new one too. I'm not sure. But I always love the darts. Even the new ones I thought were very underappreciated personally. But Double Strike says, I forgot the time change was today, which explains why I'm feeling like trash. Well, I'm glad we were able to inform you. 9 o'clock here at the end of the day. Yes, that's why things are a little bit off today for you, Double Strikes. Sorry to hear. And I see Grant says he was trying to get Danny a membership. Yeah, just that algorithm is it's funny like that. I don't know when the algorithm will make sense, because I feel like there's some people that have been getting re-gifted, and you would think that YouTube would prioritize people that haven't had a membership or haven't had one for a while, and instead it does seem like they are happy to just re-gift some people. So I wish they would give us more clarity on how that random membership gifting works there. But thanks for trying, Grant. I appreciate it. And Raphael says, I was surprised to see a GT500 considering we still have snow on the ground. Nice. Another GT500 eager to get out. That's awesome. See Charging Car Guys here. Thanks for stopping by. Grant says, do they salt their roads or sand them? If you're asking me, we have salt, unfortunately, and it's caked until they finally relent sometime late February, early March, depending on the snowfall, obviously. But thankfully, the roads seem to be mostly salt-free now, and everything's good. So, happy to hopefully actually have spring here. Cars, thanks so much for being a member for 9 months now. He says, I think the Dodge Dart Rally was a 2013 SXT model. Gotcha. All right, so we are talking about the new one. Cool. So I think the Rallies I think they were the turbo ones, if I remember correctly, because you could get the regular naturally aspirated or you get the turbo. And I did a quick drive in a turbo manual, and it was actually a really fun little car. Again, there was so much potential there. They could have done an SRT4 version, all that. And they never did. But thanks so much again for being a member for 9 months too. And let me see. So Luke says, so the other day I saw Ford Freestyle. I remember they randomly changed the name to the Ford Taurus X, then discontinued it. Weird vehicle. Yeah, I know. It is kind of a strange thing because it was originally the Ford Flex, then Freestyle, then Taurus X, right? And it was just like all over the place. They should have just stuck with Flex, I think, personally. But let me see. Jordan says, hello, everyone. For RM, Chad, and Jordan. I'm not sure what the 4M means, but hopefully it's not 4 a.m. wherever you are. But anyway, thanks for stopping by, Jordan. Let me see. OG Skywalker says, Matt, is a CBR 500 a good daily? I know it's a bike, but I'm trying to save money and get to work quick. I have no idea about bikes, unfortunately, so I'm the wrong person to ask about that. But if you enjoy bikes and you're comfortable daily driving one around you to get to work and stuff, absolutely. I mean, bikes make a ton of sense. They're way cheaper. They're way fuel efficient, and like you said, it's a great way to save money. And it's also very fun from what I've been told. So if that fits your risk tolerances and what your comfort tolerance is of what you want from a daily driver, absolutely great way to save money, I think. And Trippy's asking, if my paint got sunburned, should I get it repainted or wrapped? I mean, I think if there's sunburn on it, then that means there's flaking and stuff, which could, I think, cause problems with a wrap potentially down the road, or even initially you just might not have an even surface there. So I would at the very least sand it down and strip it before you wrap it. I don't know if that's great to do with a wrap or not, but you're going to want a smooth, good, clean surface to put any kind of wrap down on. So I mean, and wrapping is great, especially if you're not going to keep the car super long. It's going to be cheaper. Resale might be hard a little bit though, because not everyone might love the color you pick for the wrap. Even if it's a conservative color, it still is just a wrap, not paint. That might detract from the value a little bit. But a repaint comes down to the car you have and whether the car is worth enough to justify a repaint, if you're planning on keeping it long enough, or if you think it'll help the value of it. I think wrapping again is a fun thing to do just short term, but I mean you can't beat the durability of paint in my mind, and it's just something that's wraps. They're really good, but I think some of them, especially if you don't do like an expel wrap over top of a regular wrap, you can still have some issues with a regular wrap, down the road and get chips and all that kind of stuff, just like paint. So comes down to the situation, but hopefully it helps you a little bit. Sorry to hear about the sunburn there on the car. Luke says, my kitchen remodel is about 90% done, 17 grand later, and I'm super impressed. That's awesome. Yeah, it's always amazing what remodels can do to transform, your home or whatever. And, I mean, I'm sure we've all watched enough HGTV shows and stuff to, get the effect, but it's really cool when you can, see it in your own home and experience that for yourself. And I've been thinking about you, Luke, because I think you were waiting on your Maverick, and I was nervous about the tariffs this past week, whether or not your Maverick is going to get caught up in like a tariff before it crossed the border. Hopefully it's already in the States, and hopefully you can take delivery of it before dealers try and, pretend there's a tariff and do a markup as well for stuff even before the tariffs hit. But hope you got your Maverick. I think you said it was supposed to be coming sometime any day now, but hopefully you got it. I was thinking about you, Luke. But Trenton Car Guy says, just noticed a Tundra done up like the Ford Lightning truck from the first Fast and Furious movie. Nice. That's super cool. I'm surprised. Yeah, I've never seen anyone do that on anything other than a Lightning, but that's a cool like custom job for any truck. That's awesome. OG says also wants some warranty, so looking at new for bikes. I'm not sure how much things go wrong on CBRs as far as whether a warranty is something that you need to worry about too much or not. But yeah, I think most of the time bikes that I've seen are pretty bulletproof unless you're really beating the crap out of it. I could be wrong, but typically I haven't heard of motorcycles like screwing up super prematurely, but again, I'm not really in that world, so I could be out of the loop there. MDKN says, hey, Matt, the Daily has had some problems that required a visit to the dealership this week. Transmission and blind spot were acting up. Can't fill my tank up in the cold. Obviously couldn't replicate, but they at least found the blower motor noise. Weird. So this is for your regular Kona, I think, not the N, hopefully. But hopefully that just gave you an excuse to Daily drive the N this week. But sorry to hear about the car troubles there. Hopefully they get it worked out, and hopefully it is at least under warranty there, so they can get that figured out. Hopefully, but yeah, that's no fun, especially going back and forth to the dealer and talking with them, all that stuff. I know can be such a pain. And Jordan, thank you for the super chat. He says, no disrespect, hearing snap and crackles from the mic audio. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Yeah, definitely. If there's ever any problems with the stream, let me know. But thanks for the super chat. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hopefully, I think on my end everything looks okay. Let me know, you guys. I see the hundreds there, so maybe that means everything's good. Yeah. I see Chadwick says that as well. Okay. So we can stop the stream and start it again if it continues to be an issue. Let me know. I'll keep an eye on some of the newest comments here. I'm going to just answer another question and I'll come back. Okay, Shane, so still experiencing them. So maybe this is still happening. Let me see. All right. Yeah, apparently it's not doing well. Let me see. I'm not sure why it would be messing up. Let me. Fee Mitchell says more pops and crackles than a WX. Vijal says it's fine. He says that fixed it. Okay. Well, I just wiggled my wire, so now Sky says hearing the audio issues. So okay, Anthony says it's better. Hopefully we're good. Let me know, guys, if it gets worse. I'll try and keep. Vijal says never mind. All right. Linda says she can hear me all right. Hopefully. I wish YouTube did a better job. It says intermittent. Okay, so keeps going back and forth. All right, let me see if I can play around with this. Sorry to interrupt the flow here. I'm gonna see if I can try to diagnose what's going on. Okay, muted and unmuted. See if that's any better there. So, Cara says, I hear it whenever you speak at full normal volume. It's a little annoying, but I've learned to tone it out. Weird. Okay, well, I don't want it to be unenjoyable, so I don't know. I'm just going to fully unplug this and plug it back in and see what happens here. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear me any better now. If this doesn't work, or if it's still crackling, then I will just bail on this mic and redo the stream with just my computer audio, which won't sound as good. So that's why I'm going to try and use the mic if I can. Okay, everyone says better so far, a little better now. Sound is okay, still crackling, crap. So other people say it's better, man. All right, I don't know why this usually works. Of course, it's the 100th live stream, and that's when now it starts active. It's worked good for the past 100 times, pretty much. All right, so I'm getting some 100s here and some cheers. So maybe are we good? Everything better. Linda says maybe it isn't me. I don't know. Joe says to test the audio. Tell us your thoughts on Doug. That's funny, Joe. All right, now Mr. Zona 5 says it's worse. All right, maybe I just bail on the mic altogether and it'll be crappier audio, but I'm just going to use the computer's native audio just so you guys can hear me clearly. Is that maybe the best thing to do here? Jordan says I'd get a podcast mic. I do actually have. This is the mic that I'm using. It is a basically full blown podcast Yeti Blue mic. So, all right. Zachary says it's improved but not fixed. Weird. I wonder if it's the stream. Mr. 705 says the stream is a 12 of the Doug score. All right. Other people say sounding pretty good now. Definitely better than before. All right. We'll just roll with it then, so we don't disturb the level here. All right. Everyone says it's much better now. All right. Sweet. We'll just roll with that. All right. Let's get back to it then and keep the stream going. Sorry for that, everyone. I did lose. I reloaded the page, so I did lose some comments, or some. Not entirely sure. Let me see. Try and I might have lost some. Yeah. So basically, every comment, if you have commented, please re-comment, because ever since the audio issues, I lost all the prior comments. So I'm not avoiding anyone or ignoring anyone's questions. We'll just start this fresh like a new stream here. And let me see if Michelle's asking mic I use. So I just said that. Let me see. All right. So MDKN says, to answer your question, yes, Matt, the N has been reliable. One of the two so far. The dealer I worked with was beyond fantastic. Got an appointment 1 week ahead with a loaner and 2024 N line 2 Kona. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you had a good experience with a dealer, because I've heard some mixed things about Hyundai dealers in the past. So that's unfortunate, that a lot of people don't have great experiences, but I'm glad yours was a good experience. That's great to hear. And Justin, thank you so much for being a member for 31 months now, almost 3 years. He says, not a car question, but what computer do you use currently? I have a 2021 MacBook Pro. It's the M1, first of the Apple Silicon chips. That's that. Yeah, so just the 14-inch one. And it works really well for me. And thankfully, knock on wood, it's been fine with everything I've done editing wise, and it's kept up just fine. I'm thinking it sounds like next year it's gonna be a cool refresh for the MacBook Pros, so might swap computers at that point, but it's treated me really well. I'm really happy with it. And let me see here. Other questions. Where were we? All right. Zachary says, yeah, I think we're here or there. Yeah, it's all good here. So thanks, Zachary. And Scott says, when you brought the mic a bit closer, it was super clear. Interesting. Well, I could see. Yeah. Maybe in the future, I'll try and find a way to bring this mic a little closer so it sounds better. I don't think there's really any other way aside from me getting uncomfortably close to the camera where I don't think you guys would enjoy that. Beth is texting me saying I should start doing some ASMR here and start whispering. But let me see. Other questions here. Danny says, have you researched any of the weird and quirky cars I told you about, like that turbo diesel Camry or the Q5 hybrid? I have not had time to sit down and research those kinds of things. My research of cars is always consumed with just what's the new car I'm reviewing this week, what's the thing I'm getting caught up on, and just trying to stay ahead of the ball and all that stuff. I'm jealous. There's some, like, I know Jason Camisa has talked about this in the past, that, like, since he doesn't have to worry about feeding the beast as far as content goes, he's able to spend a ton of time researching and just generally having a healthy work-life balance. And but yeah, I haven't looked into any of those. I think there was one or two where I right after the live stream, I looked it up on Wikipedia or whatever and got a little bit more info, but that was about it. But I have to jot down all the quirky cars you've pointed out, because who knows, maybe someday I'll run across one in a junkyard or something, and I'll be able to actually know what I'm talking about for if I ever spot something quirky like that. But Cara says, I remember that mic. It's like old times when you used to have that on the classic monitor and have the mic on the stand in front of you. Oh yeah, Cara, you do remember? Yes. This is, I don't want to jiggle it and have it get screwed up, but yes, the mic is the same old one that everyone thought looked like a penis whenever it was always like right in front of my chest there during the weekly updates. And that was at the old house. And then I finally swapped it around so that so that people didn't constantly make that comment. But yeah, it's the same kind of mic most podcasters use. I think most of the time it's very popular. OG Skywalker says Elantra N-Line or Kona N-Line. I'm a sedan guy myself, so I go Elantra personally, but Kona's great too, as long as you don't need a big back seat. Kona back seat is a lot tighter, at least for the old gen. New gen's better, but Elantra I think still has a little bit more space. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, is Tesla's navigation run under Starlink? I don't think so. I think it's probably a regular normal data connection. It's a good question. I honestly don't know. Obviously the GPS component is just run on GPS satellites, which I don't believe Starlink is involved with yet. I could be wrong. But then as far as the data, maybe, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. Maybe someone else knows better than I do. Harsha says it uses a phone connection. Okay, interesting. So there's no built-in modem in the Teslas? Because I mean, I thought most cars these days have just the built-in modem. Even the little Fiat 500 I have has the modem built in, and it can do, the data transfer wirelessly there. Yeah, interesting. And thank you so much, though, Jordan, for the super chat, and thanks, Harsha, for weighing in there with the info. And let me see. MD Can says the dealer I brought it from responded to my voicemail 5 days after I called them originally. Went to my local dealer, and they got me in with a loaner 1 week in advance. Wow. Well, I'm glad that getting to transfer to the right dealer there. MD Can says also just recorded my 2-year ownership anniversary on the N. I am still in love with my N more than the day I brought it home. That's awesome, and that's so great to hear. And I'll have to check it out. I didn't know you had a channel, so I'll have to check out if you did a little ownership video. I'll have to look into that and check it out. Thanks for letting me know. And Luke says my Maverick began shipping process February 10th, so hopefully pre-tariff should be at the dealership between March 5th and 11th. Okay, so hopefully that means you'll get it Monday or Tuesday, or at least that's when it'll arrive at the dealer if they actually hold to their estimate. But that's great. Definitely take delivery as fast as you possibly can on that thing. I think you said you have a family member there that'll take care of you, so it won't get price gouged or anything. But I mean, there's been dealers already seen saying, oh, sorry, the Ram's going to be 20 grand more. And it's like the tariff isn't even like officially in effect. And it's certainly not going to be hitting cars that are already on dealer lots. But there's already dealers that trying to capitalize. And we're all back in COVID car era days here pretty soon. So in some cases, some dealers are already trying to get back to that point because that was their most profitable time ever. But anyway, Harsher says, why hasn't Toyota unveiled the next gen Corolla? The hatchback came out in 2019 and the sedan came out in 2020. It's probably time for a redesign. I agree. I think Toyota has to take care of, the biggest sellers. Camry was a little bit older, so Camry was up first, obviously. And then I think RAV4 is the next logical one, and being the number one selling vehicle outside of the F-150 in America and selling almost 500,000 units last year, that's the priority. I mean, obviously, Corolla sells a ton too. I think they hit almost 250 or something last year, but RAV4 is more. So, I think that once RAV4 is done and that is launched, then I think you will see Corolla probably is the next one up to get, a new version. I also though think, you shouldn't expect a full-blown version, new version. I'm guessing, we saw with Camry, there's a lot that's new, but there is still some stuff underneath that's old, from the old car, and not really a fully new generation, in my opinion. And so sounds like it'll probably go the same way with RAV4 potentially, and probably with Corolla. I'm thinking, it makes sense for Toyota to probably do that kind of thing because one, the current models are still selling fantastically well. And so there's no need to go back to the drawing board and start from the ground up. And also it saves them a bunch of money and keeps that cash cow rolling, which, I mean, again, Toyota is the largest company, car company in the world. So it's not like they're hurting for money, but all this electric, transition is going to be very expensive and is very expensive already, and with all these other wrenches that might get thrown in here the next, couple of years, it makes sense to, be as efficient as possible. And again, they know that also Toyota fans really love, oldish kind of stuff and proven technology and proven platforms and all that. And so I think, again, not trying to do anything radical with it makes sense. So I think, I would expect, obviously fresh styling like we got with Camry, but I'd expect very much a Camry style redo for Corolla once that does actually happen. And that's also good news because then that means that like GR Corolla could still be a thing. Because if you still have basically the same mounting points for everything, same basic chassis underneath, then that means that you can continue all that stuff basically unchanged. And I think that's, why we're not hearing any kind of talk of GR Corolla going away or anything, because I think it's going to be a very easy copy paste, with the new styling, if they choose to do that. I don't know, but, I would assume that's just another perk of not having a completely all new from the ground up Corolla. But yeah, I think it'll come, I think it sounds like RAV4 could be maybe fall. So I'd say maybe either Corolla could be late fall as well, or, maybe early next year. We'll have to see. Maybe they'll surprise us with something here this summer. Maybe RAV4 will come sooner. Maybe Corolla will come sooner. I don't know. I know we've seen RAV4s spied running around. I don't think we've seen any Corollas in camo running around that I've seen personally. I could be wrong. Maybe there is stuff. I just haven't seen it. But so yeah, I don't know, but I think it should be coming pretty soon. I agree with you. MDCan says, my car spot of the week was 2 Elantra ends in the same day within 5 minutes of each other. Had a literal meltdown. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely made your day there. And Maria said, sorry to ask the same again. What are your thoughts of getting a 2011 to 2012 Lexus LS 460 as a daily? I want something with a V8 that's still reliable and luxurious. That or a 2015 Genesis 5.0. Well, I think the Lexus is going to definitely be the more bulletproof one of the two. And actually, anecdotal, but I know a friend of mine actually has the V8 Genesis and loves it. He bought it brand new. I think back in 2015 it was actually, yeah. And he still has it, and it still has been really good. I think he had one small issue with it. I can't remember. I know someone smashed a taillight, I think, in a parking lot or something. But other than that, I think mechanically it's pretty good. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've talked to him about it, but I don't think he's had any issues with it. And it's like a daily for him too. I mean, he's got a few other cars he cycles through sometimes, but I think he said it's like 80,000 miles or something like that, and it seems to be good. But the Lexus, you can't beat the Lexus. The Genesis should be, pretty good, but the Lexus is certainly the best from a reliability standpoint of that generation, I think, especially. Yeah, there's actually someone in Beth's old neighborhood or her parents' neighborhood that has one of that older generation LS as well, and he will not part with that car. It seems like he is obsessed with that thing, and I see him driving it all the time. Every time I'm in her parents' neighborhood driving through, I see him out there, and that's his pride and joy. He loves that thing, it seems. Also, Linda has an LS here if she's still hanging out with us, and so she can give you her thoughts on it as a daily. But I mean, obviously, those are insanely luxurious. They are, rolling sofas in the best way possible, and I think, yeah, both are really solid choices. But I'd probably go Lexus if you want the absolute best, million mile kind of reliability. Let me see. I see Brian also says his spot of the week was a classic Chevy Impala. That's awesome. Very nice spot. Dane says, thoughts on the new Z in today's market? I feel like between these insane discounts and questionable future of Nissan could be a good one to snag. I haven't seen insane discounts personally. I saw a few grand off, but if it's more than that, then that's great. Yeah, it always comes down to the dealer and what the actual out the door price is for this stuff. If there's some deals to be had on Z's, then I can see it making sense. I'm not sure what the state of Supra sales are these days, as far as if dealers are doing any discounts on those, or how the other competition is faring as far as discounts and what average real world transaction prices are for all these. So that's really the curveball, because otherwise, if we're talking MSRP, as I discussed in my Z review, Supra's a better car for basically the same money. I'd rather have a Mustang GT with a performance pack, for roughly the same money. Although these days Mustang is a little more expensive, but I'd go lightly used S550 with performance pack and have a way better car than Z as well. So it comes down to personal preference. I don't love the new Z. I'm happy they made it. I hate all the carryover stuff, and it's just way too expensive to be half zombie 370Z, which is what it is still. There's a lot of 370 underneath. There's a lot of 370 on the interior. It's just too expensive. And they still, are just refusing to put a limited slip diff in the base car. And that would so much help the affordability, because not everyone who wants an LSD also wants a Bose stereo and all this other crap. Like, I'm still pissed with the way they packaged that car. They completely screwed it up, in my opinion. But if you can get a good deal on one that is significantly under what the real pricing is of the other ones, or if you just like the styling, again, cars are oftentimes just subjective emotional purchases. The Z is a fun car, and if I take off my car reviewer cap and, don't compare it to everything else, it's a fun car for sure. It still is probably going to turn heads, especially since it's pretty rare, since no one bought one yet. I think it's still, I'm happy it exists, but yeah, it has to be a big discount. I'd say at least $5,000 less than Supra to make it, worth the discount, and worth the lesser performance over Supra or Mustang or anything like that. I mean, I feel like I haven't looked on Mustang prices recently, but I feel like you can get a nice low miles S550 performance pack. It's got to be under 50 grand. I mean, I could be wrong, but obviously I still love Mustang, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but to get a 7,500 RPM screaming V8, active exhaust, active dampers, an actual nice interior with metal in it, with even from 2015, it's still newer than a 370Z interior, which is what half of what the Z is. So yeah, maybe I'm biased, but I just rather have S550 Mustang GT all day every day still. But if you don't want to be another Mustang owner, I get it, and the Z is great. And hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me see. Luke says, my brother is in the commercial sales manager at the dealership, so they shouldn't mess with me on the cost. That's great. Yeah, I remember you saying, yeah, your brother was in there. So that's good that your Maverick will hopefully be an issue-free buying experience. JTC says, why are used Mercedes wagons 2020 E450 still big money when the new Crown Signia seems to do everything better? I don't know if there's many cross shoppers, honestly, for those two. I agree with you. I would rather have a Crown Signia over an older Mercedes wagon myself, too, just because I don't want to deal with the maintenance costs of an out of warranty Mercedes. I wouldn't do that myself. I mean, obviously, I think used ones started way higher than a Crown Signia. I mean, a used E450 wagon, those were what, 80 grand or something, even back in 2020, maybe 70. But I don't think they ever got lower than 70 even back then. So, you start at a higher point, and that's why it ends up being, over 5 years, depreciating 30 grand, brings you to, Crown Signia kind of pricing. But yeah, I'd rather have a Crown Signia too. I mean, Mercedes is certainly going to be, a little more polished and all that. But again, you're rolling the dice there as far as maintenance costs. Justin says, nice. I'm considering getting the new M4 MacBook Air to replace my Intel one from 6 years ago. Glad it's treated you well. Yeah, especially if you're coming out of the Intel Macs, it is a huge improvement just because of the way, everything works. It's not so much like the specs, but it's just that having, everything kind of more consolidated and having Apple being able to custom tune everything for their own chip just made everything run so much smoother. Because before this Mac, I had the iMac, the big 27-inch one with the Intel chip. And obviously that was old. It was like a 2015. But, by 2021, it was just like, it was old, and it just was slow. And it seems like this is aging a little bit better so far. So we'll see. But yeah. And best of luck there considering that. And it seems like new MacBook Airs are great. So best of luck there hunting down a deal on one of those, Justin. And Wheatman, thanks so much for being a member for 35 months now. 1 month to go here, or maybe less than a month for the 3-year mark. I really appreciate it. I will be this week doing the new 3-year member badge for members. I think the consensus last time we talked about it was a white background with midnight purple, kind of GTR midnight purple for the text there. So those members stand out there for over 3 years. So anyway, thanks so much. Just congrats on the 100th Car Talk episode. I really appreciate it. And it's been fun, and looking forward to the next 100. And let me see. Where were we here? MBCan says, for anyone here, don't service your car at Faulkner Hyundai Harrisburg. You won't get a call back until 5 days later. Interesting. Because Faulkner is the dealer that I kind of had a crappy experience with the Fiat 500e, because they were the front runner for the pricing. I don't know how much I got into this last time we chatted about all this stuff, but they kind of jerked me around on price, and I didn't appreciate it, and I kind of swore them off, and that's why I ended up, going to Kentucky, or getting the car from Kentucky, because Faulkner was just not the best. They sounded like they were the best, and then they just started playing games and just decided to bail before that turned into a nightmare. So Scott says, I've got a Fiesta ST with 70,000 miles, been super reliable, but adding 30,000 miles a year. Any knowledge how well the engines keep together? If it's stock, I feel like you should do pretty well. I've seen some of those I swear I've seen Fiesta STs over 200,000 miles. Obviously it comes down to how meticulous you are with all the oil changes, how meticulous the prior owner was, did they beat the crap out of it, before you got it, or if you've been the original owner ever since, then obviously that's a non-issue. But it really comes down to maintenance, I think, for most cars. If you are obsessive with maintenance and nailing the intervals and all that, I think that most modern cars can go the distance. So especially if you love it and, it's been great for you so far, I would stick with it. Either that or get a car like in the next 2 or 3 weeks before everything gets nuts with tariff pricing potentially. But I think, especially since interest rates still aren't amazing and stuff, if you love a car and you're good with it, I really think everyone should just kind of hold tight, stick with the car you got if you like it. And, plan on keeping that here, for a while. Because, unless you're worried about parts pricing, but, as far as everything else, car prices just going to get crazy. So it's either buy this month or don't buy until we get some sense of these tariffs and stuff. But yeah, Fiesta ST should be good, I think. I mean, there is, Fiesta forums and Reddit pages and Facebook groups and stuff where you can kind of, get a better, pulse on that there. And, but I think I follow the Mileage Impossible page on Facebook, which is really fun to see all these crazy cars you would never expect to go high miles that actually do sometimes. But I mean, Fiesta, I know there's someone with a regular Fiesta, and that thing, I think they had over 500,000 miles on it. So, I mean, it's definitely possible. And the STs, I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that as well. And best of luck with that. And let us know how it goes if you decide to keep it. And Michelle says, power recline, third row is my favorite part of the TX. Really impressive space in it compared to everything else. Got to drive it today for the first time. Very quiet, plush car to drive. Yeah, they did a great job with it. Glad you're enjoying it. 2.4T isn't bad either. Yeah, I think it's a good motor too. And yeah, I think it's plenty for that vehicle. And Zachary says, yesterday I ended up following an exotic car cruise, at least a dozen brightly colored Porsches, several Lambos, and a couple Audi wagons. It was about 20 miles of entertainment. There was also a C6 Vet and a riced out S1 NA7 Mustang that felt super out of place. That is funny. But man, that sounds like a fun cruise. I miss doing those kind of cruises. And yeah, it's something I don't have the time to just go burn a Saturday anymore. I wish I did. That's because I do miss those days of chasing down buddies, and some of them were exotics, and some of them just Mustangs or whatever, and it was good times there. Sounds like a fun time. Glad you got to experience that, Zachary, and hopefully you were in the right car to enjoy that as well. And let me see. OG Skywalker says, what's your opinion on the new Santa Fe's? Is the hybrid necessary? I haven't gotten an update on the transmission issues since last year. So maybe they've sorted it out. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. If you are seriously considering buying one, I would certainly try and, get an update on that. I will try and look into it as well if I get a chance this week. But I think, yeah, the hybrid is just a more proven. Just the 8-speed dual clutch in the Santa Fe's, even if a recall has fixed it, it's been problematic in the Sorento. It's been problematic in other stuff. It's not problematic in everything, and some people have good experiences. It comes down to your risk tolerance. Personally, yes, I think the hybrid would be the only one I would feel comfortable, buying at this point in time if I was buying a Santa Fe. But you might have good luck with it. And again, they might have fixed it. It might be improved now. And at least the good news with a Hyundai too is they have a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. And especially with the transmission being a known issue, they shouldn't give you an issue with that. If that starts to get screwed up either now or at 99,000 miles, they should cover it. So it also comes down to how long you're going to keep it for, but I also it wasn't super smooth all the time. It was kind of slow with the downshifts. Your mileage will vary. I think it's worth a test drive, and especially if you're not going to keep it more than 100,000 miles or 10 years, then it's probably fine to get the regular one. Just be prepared. You may have to take it into the shop, but hopefully not. And but yeah, I think the hybrid's definitely the better way to go personally, but it comes down to your preferences there. And Joseph says G70 3.3T or TLX Type S. Does the G70 really have all the reliability issues on online forums? I haven't heard issues about G70s. I mean, Stinger's been pretty solid from what I've seen, and that's the same motor. I don't know why G70 would have issues. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't heard of any issues with those myself. I haven't checked the forum, so maybe you have done a little more research on that, obviously, than I probably have. But I've never run across any grievances or people. Usually I'll even get people that complain in comments on the video. Like you can go watch my old G70 review from a year or two ago. And usually if people were burned by a car significantly, or people have heard about that, they'll be in the comments saying, oh, this thing's unreliable. This is a piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember getting any of those kind of comments on the G70. TLX also should be really solid too. Yeah, but that also is a new motor. I mean, that Type S has that new turbo V6. I mean, yeah, it's a Honda engineered motor, but that's no guarantee. We saw Toyota motors have issues with the new truck motors and stuff. So I mean, I think to me they're both kind of equal from a risk standpoint as far as reliability goes, in my opinion, without doing research, to say definitively. The only thing I also say, I don't know what your TLX you're looking at, but I was annoyed with the throttle lag on the pre-refresh. So if you're going for a 24 or newer, you should be fine. But pre 2024, I did not like the way the throttle was calibrated, and they did fix that. Like they actually said in the 2024s, we made it so it's quicker in Sport Plus mode to downshift and more responsive and less laggy. So, um, you know, test drive a TLX Type S is all I'm saying before, if it's a pre 2024, before you commit to it, just because you may actually be a little bit annoyed with it, like I was. I don't know. But I love G70, and I'll have to do some research on that too. But I don't remember seeing any issues with those. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. But yeah. Also, keep in mind with any forum complaints, everyone that's driving around happily in their vehicle is not on the forums. They're not sitting there typing, man, I had the best day today driving my G70 and it was completely issue free and boring. No one says that. It's always people that have stuff to complain about, or, hey, I got a new part for my car, whatever. But people aren't hanging out on forums every day reporting that they had a good drive, So it's kind of like a hospital where everyone's sick around you. And if you're only in a hospital, then it's like, oh man, well, like the human body is just like this completely broken idea because everything's broken, and it's not actually the case, So that's the careful thing you have to, keep in mind about forums or any kind of online, feedback for that kind of stuff, is that you're going to get more grievances than is realistic, when you actually look at the percentages of how many thousands of vehicles are out there driving around without an issue, So, but anyway, MDCan says, "Oh yeah, Matt, the new Gen Konas have enormous back seats. They are really a lot better. It's not best in class, but it is so much better, and I'm so glad they fixed that for the new gen." And Cars remembers I had to try and hide the mic because of the comments back in the day. And V. Mitchell says, in the Western Electric Model 200 phone in the background. Yep. And that phone is still just on the other side of this camera here. And got a bunch of other cool little things. Maybe I'll do an office tour sometime for members. That could be a fun little exclusive. I did do a shelf tour already, but maybe, there's not a whole lot else interesting here to see. But for those of you that actually would be interested seeing all the crap I have around here, I can show I have a vintage radio, and there's the one Maltese Falcon up there, and then I also have another one and other random things. For anyone who's a history buff, I have my collection of fedoras that'll never get worn again until they come back in fashion, or I someday can pull it off better than I can currently. And yeah, a bunch of other random little knickknacks and stuff. Yeah, let me see here. I see Harsha says you need a subscription to have built-in Wi-Fi for the Tesla. Gotcha. Well, it's nice to let you use your phone and they don't force you to a subscription. Cara says, my friend Anthony in Virginia just got a 2024 Mitsubishi Mirage. He's added some custom red color in the door jamb and an aftermarket armrest. Looks really cool. Yes, it's Mirage chat time. Nice. Yeah, I want to review a Mirage this year just because it seems like they actually are pretty good for reviews. People are very curious, and it's always just I think it would be a fun because it would probably actually be the lowest horsepower car that I've reviewed. I reviewed a golf cart and I reviewed a tractor for April Fool's jokes, the past few years, or a long time ago, not the past few years, it's like 10 years ago. But yeah, I think as far as actual cars goes, that would be the lowest horsepower thing ever. So that'd be fun. So I'm gonna try and review one this year. And MD Can says, I can send my channel over to you via email. The release will be April 21st, the day I brought Kraken home. That's awesome. Yeah, please do. And PK says, I'm worried we won't get as much foreign brand cars anymore to the U.S. with the tariffs. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. A lot of these foreign brands do have some factories in the U.S., and it's just going to come down to foreign parts content too, because that's going to be the problem for everything, even stuff built in the States, is how much of that part content in the car is foreign, because nothing is even, I think, over 75% American content. So, that's going to really be the equation. All these brands are going to have to, if this all holds, which is a very big if, but every brand's going to have to go through, and I'm sure they already have, had someone crunch the numbers and say, okay, if every one of these little parts in this car is getting tariffed, and these are the foreign ones, these are the domestic ones, and they price and they figure out every single one of these parts with an extra 25% plus however many 25% it takes if they're going over the border multiple times, like I talked about in the weekly update. If there is some of that, then it's just which things do they think they can sell at those elevated prices and which things can't they. That's just, we'll have to see. But I don't even know if it's an issue of foreign cars. I mean, foreign cars are certainly going to be an issue too. But again, even if, domestic cars get more expensive because of those foreign parts, I think you're just going to see massive layoffs, factories idled. Again, all the COVID stuff all over again. You're going to see just everything just shut down because there'll be part shortages. And the problem that you think we would have learned this stuff back in COVID again, there's a domino effect here. You screw over a parts supplier, then that shuts down the whole production line anyway, because then they can't put that part in the car, or then they start having to drop out parts. Like our Mach-E doesn't have the automated parking feature it was supposed to have, because when they built that, they didn't have those sensors and those chips back, in 2022. So, it's got a button that doesn't do anything, that's supposed to do the parking stuff. And they gave us, I don't know, like a couple $100 credit or something on the window sticker for that. But, you start losing, if you start screwing these part suppliers, then you can't build a complete car anymore. And so it doesn't even matter. So, some of those smallest little suppliers and the smallest little components could end up crippling the entire line. And then, again, trying to get this stuff booted back up, because again, this stuff's all in this supply chain. And once you stop that and cut that off, then it takes a while to get that back going. And it takes time to populate that line to get to the final finished product again, and then start rolling, and everything is just delayed so much. And so, that's going to be, the domino effect. And that's why these things are dangerous, because even if these tariffs last for a month, a lot of these dealers, they have enough supply. They can probably weather a little bit of a leaner volume for a little while, but you're going to have less selection on the dealer lots, even if it's a short thing. But if it's a few months or more, then that's when you start laying people off. Then can you get those people back? You're firing people, you're closing factories, you're doing this, that, and the other. And then the whole thing just comes crashing down, just the whole thing. And that's really the risk here. And this is why it's not just some fun little game you can play back and forth. And it's not some fun little negotiating tactic. Like you negotiate on the phone before you do these things, before you have, truckers stuck at a port, not being able to dump their stuff and not knowing whether they should go backwards or forwards, because, you have these things, you negotiate these things ahead of time. You come up with a plan and then you announce your course of action. You don't sit here and, do these things as some trial run and then wait for everyone to come running. It's just so reckless, and it's going to cost people their jobs. And so again, hopefully cooler heads prevail. Hopefully common sense prevails, and things actually get worked out here. But it's, and if not, then it's going to be just one of these hard lessons that we'll have to learn. Because again, I guess we didn't learn it with COVID. You don't screw with your production lines. You don't screw with supply chains. And I guess we'll have to learn that lesson again. And, if we are lucky, it'll be as minimal as it was of a year or two, with the COVID stuff. But, I don't think anyone enjoyed buying a car back in 2021, 2022. And it's just, it is what it is. It's one of those things where, no matter what happens, I'm just going to sit back and, there's nothing we can do aside from be as prepared as we can. Anyway, sorry for the tangent there, but Vishal says, when taking delivery of the TX, there were 4 other ones also ready for delivery. Definitely shows how popular it is and how badly Lexus needed the TX. Yeah, I agree, and I'm grateful to see that it's doing so well for them, because I think it's the hit that they really I think needed at the Lexus dealer. And Dylan says, is there a car that you think would benefit drastically by having an EV version, or vice versa, an EV having a gas version? That's an interesting question. Trying to think. I mean, I guess if there's cars that have terrible powertrains, that's where I think like an electric version would be better. Honestly, Hyundai Santa Fe might be one of those, where if it had the same fantastic powertrain you have in Ioniq 5, and that great styling of the Santa Fe, then that gets rid of all the transmission complaints. That gets rid of all of the, slowness of even the hybrid. And you have great efficiency. So I think examples like that where the powertrain isn't the best, or there have been issues in the past or whatever, if there's no real sacrifice in losing that gas powertrain, as far as, there's no character to it, or there's no, endearing quality about the powertrain, then, chuck it. The EV is going to be better from a appliance standpoint, having that powertrain in there instead. So there's those types of things. Now, as far as EVs that would be better with a gas version, it'd be fun to see like a gas version of the Ioniq 5N, and like, even it doesn't have to be 600 horsepower like the electric version. I'd love to even see, maybe a little bit more than what a launcher N has, but basically like a launcher N powertrain in Ioniq 5, that like hot hatch packaging, I think would be really cool. And obviously, again, in a vehicle that big, even if you drop the battery pack, it still is going to be a heavier vehicle, so not as fun as a launcher N, but could be like a fun successor to Kona N if they're never planning on doing another one of those. Kind of same idea there. I think that could be really fun. But beyond the Hyundai group, I don't know. I mean, obviously everyone's going to say Charger, and we're going to get the inline 6 version, but obviously that with a V8 would be cool. Trying to think of other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I think those are probably the top ones that I can think of. I'd love to see an actual F-150 Lightning that it has a supercharged V8 in it again. From the factory, that's not a Raptor R, like a street-based kind of thing. I think would be cool, and that's, again, what Lightning used to be, so that'd be kind of fun to see. And then, yeah, I mean, I think everything else, though, if any gas vehicle that doesn't have an exciting powertrain is just better as an EV, unless you're road tripping, and I think that's really, I think, why I love seeing a lot of these car companies now adopting this idea of like, here's the car, you have your choice of gas, plug-in hybrid, or hybrid, and or electric, and you just pick whatever you want. And I think that way, people that say, oh well, I'm nervous about this, that, or the other, well, you have this other alternative, whether you're going one way or the other, to help ease those concerns. And so that's why I think you're seeing BMW has obviously done that. Mercedes is now kind of copying that same trend of just having the same car with electric or gas, and I think that's kind of going to probably be the smart way to go about things for the the long term here. And let me see. Luke says, I'm excited for the new Passport. Weird how it's at dealers already, yet no drive event has occurred. Yes, and this is why I'm really giving up on a lot of these media drives this year, because they've gotten so slow, and I don't know. My guess as far as why they maybe are doing this is, I think some manufacturers really want to make sure that everything is fully baked, and they are a little nervous about pre-production vehicles being reviewed these days. And so they want to wait till it's regular production lines, and then, getting those regular production cars, even if it's the first ones off the line, to a location for a media drive, getting, them all prepped and stuff, and then getting them ready to go for the media drive. It still should be roughly the same time as when dealers are getting them, but it seems like just they can't seem to get ahead of that. And it used to be that we drive stuff a month or more before it was at dealers, and now that's not the case. And so that's why it's like, why am I reviewing this? I can go to my dealer down the street and do the same thing. And and Passport's an example of that. And we will see. I may try and do some of those types of things this year, depending on how my schedule works out and how things play out. As far as the companies that I'm thinking about doing this with, but like, for example, Honda didn't invite me to the new Passport drive. And that's fine. They didn't invite me to it, because again, I've been saying no to a lot more media trips recently, but I'm not under any embargo with them. And I mean, it's kind of debatable, do you wait until after the embargo out of courtesy? But a lot of this stuff these days is more cutthroat, and people are like, no, like if I can, get ahead of the embargo people and I'm not under an embargo, then there's no harm, no foul, and they still go for it. So I'm still debating personally how I want to play that myself. But like, there may be some of those where it's like, okay, I know no one's driven this thing yet. I can go to a dealer and get, that car. And I'm going to do a lot more dealer stuff this year. Is definitely, that's part of why I got the Fiat, to even skip out on more press cars, and just go to dealers more, because they're getting everything before everyone else is. So it's like, why wouldn't I just go to a dealer, So I think that's, Yeah, but I'm excited for the new passport too. I think it's pretty nicely done. But apologies, I missed a couple of super chats here. Classical, thank you so much for a super chat. They say your opinion on the 2013 Lexus GS 350 all-wheel drive. Fantastic cars, another bulletproof Lexus that I think is aged very well. Obviously, the infotainment's terrible. Aside from that, a great car. And if you don't care about that component of it, they'll run forever. They're comfortable. They're super good with the handling. I never reviewed a regular GS. I've always only done the GSFs because that's all they ever had in the press fleet back when I started getting vehicles from Lexus. But I love the GS. I absolutely think if you can get one for a good price, they'll run forever and really are solid cars. So yeah, highly recommend it. And thanks so much for the super chat. An 814 Pilot, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Say, pretty sure I saw you in Target last week with the wifey. I saw a cool car parked back in the parking lot, and I'm assuming video on it soon. I'm the pilot that ran into you in LaGuardia Airport when you went to see the Jeep. Wow, it's a small world. So I guess I didn't know you're that local to Pittsburgh. So yeah, if you that's funny. You should have said hi if you spotted me. I didn't realize. That's funny. So if you did see a cool car parked in the back of the parking lot, yes, video is coming soon. Actually coming here, not this coming week, but the following week. Yeah, you should have definitely said hi. I would have totally shown it to you if you were hanging around there. Because I would have probably recognized you too from LaGuardia there. That's awesome. Hope you're into the Nautilus, I think, right? I hope the Nautilus is still treating you well. Yeah, man, I would have totally shown you the car because it was a sweet car, as you know. So, but yeah, I appreciate the super chat and thanks for stopping by. And yeah, video on that will be coming, I think, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. Man, that was quite the week with that car, and I will talk more about that. I want to keep it a member exclusive for now, but yeah, once that's out there, I will definitely give more thoughts on that in the live after that video goes live. But yeah, thanks so much for stopping by, and thank you again for the very generous super chat. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat as well. It says PSA for Cleveland, Ohio: theft of Dodge/Jeep vehicles. Suspects using scanner/ghost key fobs to reprogram and access vehicles. Interesting. Well, thank you for that heads up. And that's crazy that that's happening again. I thought that they had patched that or something. I know I've seen so many reels on Instagram of Charger Hellcats getting stolen out of people's driveways and stuff. I don't know what it is about Dodge and Jeeps. I mean, I think Chargers attract theft because they are liked by the thieves, but I don't know what it is about Dodges and Jeeps that are so easy to steal. That's crazy. I'm not sure. Yeah, hopefully that gets fixed. That's bizarre, but yeah, that sucks. Man, yeah, I thought all that stuff got figured out, but I guess not. Oh man, they need to come up with better ways to retroactively, even if they got to bring everyone in and give them a new fob or something. I don't know what it takes, but yeah, this is also why I'm not here to plug any parts or devices or anything. But if you have a vehicle that is at risk of being stolen and you park it out in the driveway, especially, you got to get one of those RF jammer pockets or whatever. They're the little tinfoil thing. And maybe, I don't even know if there's a hack if you can just wrap it in foil or something, but something to block the signal for your key until you're actually ready to go out to the vehicle. And make sure your key is never hanging close to the vehicle, because they can use one of those little repeater things just to bridge the gap there to get it so that the car recognizes it, and then they're off. So yeah, definitely make sure. Yeah, the Faraday cage, Shane. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, definitely get one of those little Faraday cage things, especially if you're a Dodge or Jeep. But also, the Kias were having the other weird issue with the theft and stuff. I think it's a good idea for anybody, especially if you park in a driveway, because all these keyless fobs, I feel like it's easy to kind of spoof those again with those repeaters or whatever those signal things are. Yeah, so. Crazy to hear that. Thanks so much, Jordan, for the PSA. And let me see here. Where were we? So I see DJ also says you're rocking to serve times 1,000 followers. I really appreciate that. We'll see see how the channel keeps on growing, but I'm just thankful for those of you that continue to watch. Harsh just says, remember the Kia K900, supposed to be a Mercedes S-Class rival, but the badge killed it. Yep, it's just one of those things it's tough to justify, even with the big discount. I mean, that is a great car in the used market, though. I mean, they are, I don't know what they're like, under 30 grand now for a car that was like 80 or 70 when they were new. I reviewed one way back when. Really liked it. It was super nice, and especially if it's a 30 grand car, kind of in the same league as the LS and the Genesis. Obviously, again, LS is unbeatable from a reliability standpoint, but if the Kia and the Genesis are cheaper by a good margin and you're comfortable, with a little bit of a riskier, proposition there, I still think it's a solid car. And yeah, K900 is super nice. And Angry Eddie says, happy 100. Always love tuning in when I can. Appreciate that, Eddie, and thanks so much. And Jorge says, just saw a 2015 Camaro Callaway Z28 in Modena, Italy. Almost broke my neck and definitely scared everyone in the car when I called it out. That's wild. Yeah, that's especially, I'm pretty sure they tax by displacement in Italy, if I remember correctly, but that is an expensive car to have, and just bringing it over is definitely expensive. That's awesome. You're in Modena too. I love Modena, and yeah, I'd love to go back every year if I could. But I was just in Maranello last year, and kind of went through Modena a bit there, and man, yeah, I love Italy. Anyway, hope you're enjoying it, and yeah, hope you've spot some more fun stuff too while you're there. And Classical, thank you so much for another super chat. They said, I found a local seller of a 2013 GS350. One owner, no accident, garage kept, perfect exterior and perfect interior. Seller left the country after the pandemic. Wow, 50,000 miles and asking for 10 grand USD. I haven't looked at the pricing of those. That sounds like a hell of a deal to me. I could be wrong. Yeah, I'd have to scan the market and see there's no way they're going that cheap. I can't imagine that's a bad deal. That has to be a solid deal. Man, yeah, I feel like you got a score there. I could be completely wrong. If I had 10 grand to burn and needed something like that, absolutely, that would be a fantastic choice. And that car, yeah, I feel like they're almost going to appreciate eventually, just because it's something that you're not going to see a rear-wheel drive based GS, or anything, Lexus sedan, probably for a long time, if ever. So I mean, that seems like a really nice car. I would totally go for that. And thank you again for the super chat, and hope it works out for you. Fingers crossed. If that is truly everything they're saying it is, I think that's a fantastic deal and great find. And let me see. Where were we here? So OG says Supras go for 50. That's amazing to me that Supras are still going for 50 grand, because they were going for 50 grand like when they came out. I feel like they just haven't appreciated at all, which I guess proves that they're really sought after still or something. Because yeah, definitely not depreciating as fast as the BMWs that came out back then that were going for the same money as Supras. They're all 30 grand now, or maybe 35, 40 tops. But yeah, Supras being 50 still, I think, is a testament to that car. And Cars says, I saw an interesting video on the Fast Lane truck about the Tello MT1 mini truck. Didn't know that was a thing. Have you heard much about it? What are your thoughts? I have no clue what that is. Is that, I don't think that's the Russian thing that TFL was playing with, right? That like crazy Russian military truck. I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of that vehicle. So I'm sorry, I can't give you any intelligent thoughts on it. U Green says, is a 330 okay for a young man in college? I think, yeah, 330 is a great car, as long as it's not an older one, because you just don't want to get stuck with a big, expensive, repair bill. Maintenance is kind of expensive if you're going to a dealer. If you can find a good independent shop to do work on it, then that might be better. But that's the only thing I worry about with those. But obviously, very safe, very nice vehicle, and great otherwise. So yeah, as long as you don't mind the maintenance costs, I think it's great. And Sean, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hola, Mateo. My dad is traveling the country, retirement. So I've been given temporary custody of his 07 SL 550 hardtop convertible. It's a blast, even though being a used German car, it has some quirks. But yeah, that sounds like a very fun time. And yeah, those were still, tanks. Obviously, again, yeah, like you said, some quirks. glad that it's your dad that's doing the maintenance and the repair work, or paying for that, and you're just able to enjoy it. But that's definitely the ideal experience there, is enjoying it on someone else's dime in a way. That's great. But that's awesome and so cool. Hardtop convertible, best of both worlds, especially for a cruiser like that. I'm sure that's a blast. Yeah. And hope you continue to enjoy it. Hope your dad has some good, fun, safe travels there. And thanks so much, Sean, for the super chat. And let me see. Danny says, what are your thoughts on a 2014 Super Impreza hatchback 2.0 Sport Limited as a first car? I'm going to be turning 17 in about 2 weeks, and I'm starting to look at cars before my parents ask me. Nice. They're great. I think there have been some CVT issues that I've heard about with that generation Impreza in particular. Those boxer motors do sometimes burn some oil and have some head gasket issues once you get over the 6-figure mark on the miles. So, I'd look at the Carfaxes on any of them that you can to make sure that, they're either well under that mileage or that the maintenance has been done already if they are over that mileage. If you need all-wheel drive, obviously it's a great choice. If you don't need all-wheel drive, I mean, again, it's personal preference, but I wouldn't go for an old Subaru for a first car myself, even though my first car was an old Subaru, but it was one that actually before I got it, like pretty close before when I took ownership of it, my dad had to put a bunch of money into the motor on the 1997 Impreza Outback Sport that we had, because it was starting to have some issues there. And, they did new gaskets and, timing belt, all those types of things you got to do around that point in time. And then, it seemed like it was fine. Unfortunately, last time I saw the Carfax on it, which I think it was taken off the road 10 years ago or more, and I think it was in an accident or something. But I thought it got over 200,000 miles eventually. But Subarus, I feel like most old Subarus that are on the road because their owners love them and dump money into them. I mean, there are some that I think do last pretty long, but it's not as reliable as a Toyota or Honda of the same era, that are more simple with just a regular automatic, or even a CVT that, again, is done by a Toyota or Honda versus Subaru. I don't love it myself, but, it comes down to, again, what you're looking at, what you're interested in, what you need, what you want. But I think, I would just be very careful with the maintenance record to make sure that stuff's been done, so you're not stuck with, again, another big expensive bill, at some point down the road. But I see TFI says they're also very safe, which is true. There are very safe cars, so that is a really nice perk for sure. But yeah, I see TFI also agrees about the CVT. So if you can do a manual, that is a good alternative. TFI, thanks for suggesting that. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, because they did have the manual. I don't know if the Limiteds had the manual at that point, but you could find a regular Sport probably with a manual in 2014, and then that gets rid of that issue. And then you mostly just have to worry about the engine, which I think is probably the lesser of the two evils as far as CVT versus the engine of those boxers. But should be okay if you get a manual one, I'd say. And Nick says, what's your favorite car you've reviewed under 20 grand? If we're talking cars that I when I reviewed them, they were under 20, and not cars that I reviewed that have since dropped below 20 grand. Under 20, I mean, honestly, like we were talking earlier about Fiesta ST, I think the one that I reviewed back then, they weren't under 20 brand new, but the one that I was reviewing was used. The person bought it used, and I believe it even back then was under 20 grand used. I think Fiesta ST has got to be close to one of the top fun picks. And also, I believe the Focus ST that I reviewed, the couple I've reviewed in the past, the one was actually, I think that one was under 20 grand even back then, if we're being sticklers on the price point. But Focus ST is another really good one. Deborah X's are still really fun. Just again, you got to worry about maintenance and reliability with those. But those are another one that was under 20 that was really fun. But I think Fiesta ST has probably got to be one of the top ones. I mean, obviously, I did some older muscle stuff that probably came in under 20 grand too. So any of those things probably. I feel like even like I did the Chrysler 300C SRT8. That was, I think, like 2007 or 2006 model year for that. That was probably under 20 grand way back when even, and these days probably is still under that. So that's another really fun one. There's a lot. I mean, at this point, I've reviewed over 800 cars, and I'd say probably close to half of them were, maybe not quite half, definitely over a quarter of them are 20 grand or under. So a lot of fun stuff. I did a lot of fun cars. I mean, there's S2000s, probably can't get one of those under 20 anymore, but they were under 20 when I was reviewing them. And there's probably, some other stuff, but those are the ones that jumped to my head right away. But I just, Fiesta ST, I'm still so mad at myself I never bought one of those, because I almost traded in the Mini for one instead of getting the EcoBoost Mustang. And in hindsight, the EcoBoost was great, but I honestly wish I would have just gone Fiesta ST and then gone straight to the V8 personally. I like EcoBoost, nothing against EcoBoost, but I wish I would have had the ownership experience of a Fiesta ST at some point. So that's probably one of my favorites, honestly. Just because it's so light and so small and tossable. Just so fun. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He said, could you explain the red Honda logo badging? The red Honda logo is for the Type Rs, I believe, and just reserved for that sportiest stuff, but I'm not an expert on that, so there may be others that know more about that than I do. But I believe that's it. But yeah, maybe if someone else has a better answer, feel free to weigh in. Sorry, I don't have the best answer there, but thank you so much for the super chat. And Chase, thank you so much for a very generous super chat, and also your first super chat here on the live stream. Thank you so much, Chase. And he's asking, Matt, what are your thoughts on the 2025 Nissan Armada? Wife and I are looking at upgrading from a 19 Highlander. I love the Armada. I just did a review on it back in December. So if you haven't seen that already, that has all my thoughts in it there. I also just spent a week with one actually just a couple of weeks ago, and that video is going live here on Thursday. And so that's more of my living with kind of thoughts, my fuel economy, in my real world kind of driving, all that kind of stuff. So that gives you more info in there. High level, quick stuff. I think I really enjoy it. It's, it comes down to personal preferences. Personally, it's still hard for me to say. There's a nice discount there. So it comes down to how price sensitive you are as well. If you want the best value, I think it is still the best value. But for me, the debate in my head is, do I spend a few grand more and get a Tahoe with a V8? And I'd say slightly better handling than Armada. And there's also a few minor glitches, and I talk about this in my week with video here that'll be coming out on Thursday. The CarPlay froze a couple times on me. These could all be early things and things that can be fixed with software updates and stuff as well. But there was a few tiny little bugs. I also didn't love, it took a while to go from like reverse to drive, and just a little bit of a slow shifting, mechanism I didn't love there. So there's a few little quirks that I don't experience with the other competitors. Typically, Wagoneer was a little quirky as well, so that's another one that's not top in my mind. But yeah, I think those are my thoughts there. After, if you've already watched the review, just give you a little early teaser on the week with video. But that's about all of my thoughts on it. I don't know if it would be my pick, if I'm being completely honest. I think, again, I'd probably spend a couple grand more for a Tahoe. Or if you don't need to have the brand new Expedition that's coming out here in the next couple of months, I did a tour of that already last year. If you haven't seen that, but I'm assuming that means there's probably some pretty solid deals right now on 2024 Expeditions on lots, and Expedition is also very nice too. So again, comes down to what you're looking for exactly. But Armada is still certainly very nice, and they did a really good job here on the new generation. So I think it's definitely worth considering. I certainly like it better than Sequoia. I know you're a Toyota owner. I wouldn't bother with Sequoia. Honestly, I would certainly take Armada over that. But the domestic competitors are just really, they've been doing it the longest. They know what they're doing, and they do a very good job too. So that's all my condensed thoughts here, but definitely, again, check out the review if you haven't. Check out the week with video here on Thursday, and that'll give you some more thoughts there on that. But thank you so much for the super chat. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions as well. I'll be more than happy to answer anything more specific if you're curious about. But yeah, and let me see. So I think we might have reset the clock here with whenever we had the audio issues earlier. So I'm not sure if I think we're mostly on track here with time wise. We still got about 40 minutes or so here. Let me see here. Other questions. So let me see. PK says, do you think the German brands are not worth it anymore? Every new German release is controversial. Seems like Genesis is more worth it. You know, that's kind of another one of those things that comes down to personal preference. I think I don't love German vehicles beyond lease periods because, again, the maintenance is very expensive. They're often over-engineered and have issues and quirks that you don't see with, the Japanese or the domestic competitors sometimes. But, oftentimes the Germans have some of the most impressive stuff new. So if you are against someone flipping cars every 3 years or whatever, the Germans, I think, are still potentially worth it. They also still often lease better than like a Genesis or a Lexus often does for whatever reason. I think a lot of them are really built for that company car lease kind of thing. And they've kind of, honed in on the residuals and how to, maximize those leases to make them really attractive. So if you're leasing, I think the Germans could certainly still be, a really solid value because, again, you're under warranty at that point. And aside from expensive oil changes, there's not a whole lot to really burn you there in the first couple of years. And there are some very impressive vehicles, I think. Now, if I was buying something, not leasing, but buying something, and I was planning on keeping it more than 3 years, absolutely, I'd probably go for a Genesis or a Lexus. Almost certainly. I look at the German competitors and I just talked about this with my GV80 review. If you just watched that, this past week, I'd rather have that over all the more expensive, competitors, even though yes, it's cheaper, but it's just as nice in my opinion, in most ways, plenty of performance and you don't have all those worries you have with the Germans, down the road. So yeah, I think Genesis is really fantastic, and I'd happily own anything in their lineup right now. They're really great, and it is one of the things we're considering as well. With once Beth's lease is up, we'll have to see how finances are, see how the world is next year in 2026 whenever her lease is up in the summer. As far as what we go with, but Genesis is one of the things on our radar. We've always enjoyed our time in every Genesis product, and I would happily own one or lease one if the cards fall the right way. We'll just have to wait and see. But Linda says that her husband's 2004 Lexus LS has been great, and that's good to hear. That they still enjoying his. Jordan says, with the advancement in battery tech, if BMW brought the i3 back as a full EV or improved hybrid tech, could it stand up to the Bolt, Model 3, Mazda EV, etc.? Well, i3, I think, is going to come back, but not as the quirky hatchback, but instead as just the new electric 3 Series. And the new class thing is rumored to be called i3. But as far as, some kind of hatchback kind of thing like you're talking about there, if it did come back with the new BMW electric powertrain and that new platform, absolutely would blow those out of the water. Obviously it'd be more expensive than those, but it absolutely could be much better than Bolt, Model 3, all that kind of stuff for sure. Raphael says, I'm really trying to take care of mine. 4.5 years old, 36,000 miles, almost paid off, and the V6 is gone with his Camry. Yeah, and I think that's the way to do it is just everyone that can hold on to stuff, hold on to it for the potentially bumpy future here. Cara says, I have closely followed the Aptera solar powered vehicle updates. Today I used their configurator and found their base model is great for my commute. If I had 28 grand to spare, I would consider buying one. So there was the super expensive one that they did, right? Unless I'm maybe thinking about another solar car company. I'll have to look into the Aptera because I didn't see there was a 28 grand one. Interesting. Yeah, I completely out of loop on that. If you don't mind, cars, if you don't mind sending an email or a message afterwards, I'd like to look into that and see what you're talking about. I can just make a note down here as well. But that's 28 grand for a solar car. I'd have to see all the specs and stuff, but that sounds pretty good to me. And let me see here. So Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Happy to see some familiar faces as well as some new ones. They're able to get those. And thanks so much, Kyle, for your generosity. And happy to see you in here. I see you just stop by, says, hey, everyone. And thanks so much, Kyle. Hope you're doing well. And And looking forward to chatting with you if you have any questions or comments. But thanks so much for the gifts. And let me see. Let me see. OG Skywalker is a low mileage CPO worth it if financing a Santa Fe? Absolutely. If you can have someone else take the depreciation hit of new, and you don't mind that, absolutely. CPO is a great way to go. Linda says, I have 2 wooden large radios for my grandparents. Wow, that's very cool. That's awesome. I'd love to get one of those big like consoles someday. That'd be really fun to have. That's very, very cool. And let me see. Speed rapes me. Thank you for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, quick question on the new Ford Explorer. You think there's enough room to have a threesome in the back with my dad and brother? Man, all right. Going for the controversial question of the night. Yeah, I mean, Ford Explorer, I know you're just joking around, but to spin it into an actual question, I will be getting the new Explorer here most likely. I'll be doing a review on it, I think, early next month. And it's going to be hopefully the Explorer ST, if everything works out with the press car that I'm hopefully getting. But I'm hoping to do a review on the new Explorer. I won't be testing that for you, unfortunately, so I'm not going to be able to give you a definitive answer there. But yeah, I've heard that the Explorer third row is pretty decent. As far as legroom and the usual metrics that car viewers evaluate. Thank you for the super chat. And let me see here. Thank you for the laugh as well. Harsha says, why do you think car companies have dipped in quality? Mercedes, Chevy, Ford were very reliable until the 2010s, like the Mercedes 240D, Ford Crown Vic, and the Chevy Impala with the 3.8 V6. I think the main thing that's hurting reliability is just the extra complication of cars, and I think, also you have to keep in mind with like Consumer Reports and a lot of these other reliability metrics, they survey even like the reliability of the infotainment. So a lot of us, at least me, I don't know, when I think of reliability, I think of like, is this going to leave me stranded on the side of the road? And from that kind of a standpoint, everything these days, even with the extra complexity of, electrification or whatever you want to add on, turbos, whatever, everything is very reliable these days. I'd say far better than it ever has been in history. I mean, everything will do over 100,000 miles easily. That used to not be a given, and there's just been huge strides made in the mechanical engineering of vehicles. But as far as, the electronics, that's the stuff people say, well, my car's unreliable because my Bluetooth doesn't connect. And that dings a lot of the stuff. And then you see these things like, oh no, everyone's reliability is dropping. And it's like, no, it's just that they don't do software very well, or their infotainment system sucks that they bought from their supplier, or whatever the case is. Those are really some of the things that are, hurting some of that stuff. Because I mean, you can just observe, maybe I just don't drive enough, but like when I drive around on the roadways, I feel like I see less broken down cars now than I did 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And, I see less people with car trouble, typically speaking. And, I think that most cars are, pretty solid as far as that goes. But I think, there have obviously been some concessions made in the past, decade or two as well, as far as, again, just the complexity of cars, other extra things, electronic things, whether we're talking about electronic key fobs or whatever, other things that can, introduce issues. One of the new things I just actually saw a report about recently in this past week is about 12-volt batteries. So the regular, lead acid battery in every car, which is also still in EVs and in gas and whatever, those batteries are really being pushed to the max because they have to power so much more than they ever had to. 12-volt battery used to just be that, they put out, just enough amperage there to start your car, maybe run the radio, run the headlights, blower motors, basic stuff. And, you didn't have to ask a whole lot out of that battery. And nowadays, that's been the biggest thing is a lot of people have had dead batteries that have been dying prematurely or just really struggling because these batteries are cycling more, because whenever you have the telematics in cars to do your remote start through your app or any app related stuff, if the car has to connect to a modem and has to connect to a satellite or to a cellular tower or whatever, that little, it's like it's powering a cell phone the entire time the car is stopped. And it always, again, if you want to have that fast response rate, you want to have that fast, just responsive nature for the app or whatever, you got to have that thing constantly pinging and constantly running. And especially if you don't drive your car a lot, that's a big issue. But even if you do, it's just the fact that that battery used to just sit dormant in a car when there weren't any of these phantom drains, and now you have these phantom drains. And with the EVs, this is one of the nice things. Some of these EVs are smart enough now where they will actually use the large battery pack to juice up the 12 volt whenever it notices that getting a little bit low and feeding into that. But you don't have that option with the gas car. You can't tell a gas car to start itself, especially if it's in a garage or something, start itself because the battery's about to die. But that's kind of the big problem is, now we're powering, these 50-inch screens in an Escalade, and you're powering, everything's power. Your running boards are power. Your door handles are power. Your, it has to do a welcome lighting thing with animations whenever you walk up to it. It has to have the proximity key constantly sensing so it can instantly unlock the second you grab that door handle. It's going to always be sensing for that key, and it's always going to be doing all these things. And so when you think about your little old-fashioned battery in a car, lead acid battery, some 50-plus-year-old technology that's now being pushed to power a full Super Bowl party's worth of electronics, basically. It's a lot to ask of a car, of a car battery. And I think that's honestly the biggest thing that I've seen. This is also a huge issue for EVs because a lot of these EVs don't have that powering that. And so even if you have a fully charged gigantic lithium ion battery, if that 12 volt dies, you can't get into the car, and you can't even pop the hood because these hoods are electronic latches, and you can't do anything. So you got to zap the car to then juice it enough to pop the hood, and then open the hood, and then juice the 12 volt battery to then unfreeze the whole car so it isn't just bricked. And it's this whole giant thing. And I'm just like, why haven't they come up with better technology for a 12 volt battery? Why is there, I think Tesla actually has just, I think, bypassed that in the Cybertruck. I don't know enough about it, but especially for EVs, I think, there should be some better way. It's just the problem is you have super high amperage in a traction battery that powers the car, and you can't run that kind of voltage through your screens. They turn into fireworks. So you have to, do these down converts. So it's this weak enough voltage to go to all these, lower powered electronics. But, for even, again, if we're going to have these modern cars with big screen TVs in them, you got to find some way to do this. And some companies are actually starting to do double lead acid batteries because of these demands. I think that's, I guess, the best, stopgap until you come up with a better engineered solution. Why doesn't every modern new car have 2 batteries in it? Because I think you need that if you're doing all these, phantom drains all the time. So anyway, another random tangent, but I think that's a big problem. And I think, again, if we continue down this path of bigger screens, more technology, and all this crap in cars, you can't power it with a 50-year-old battery technology. It's just not going to work anymore. And then we're going to get to a point where it just brings these things to their knees. You're going to be seeing people every year, every time you go in for an oil change, well, I got to change my 12 volt battery as well, because it's not, it just, those things just get, cycled. And that's the thing with those types of batteries. It's not so much once they're on and running, but when you're cycling them and turning them off, turning them back on, turning off on, that's what is, I guess, supposedly the most detrimental thing. So that's the thing to keep an eye out, especially if you have a modern car. Just be aware that your regular battery might not last as long as it used to in older cars that didn't have all these demands that they now have with electronics in modern cars. So that's, I think, the biggest problem. Electronics are the problem in all the ways. As much as they make our lives better in so many ways, that's, I think, one of the biggest things. Anyway, though, moving on here. So Truck and Car Guy is sorry he missed the chance to talk about his Mirage. And Linda says, I'm keeping my 2017 Mustang EcoBoost as long as it's reliable. I just bought new tires last summer. That's awesome. I hope it continues to treat you well. Let me see. OG says, when is a situation you justify a new car purchase over a CPO or even used car? I think, it comes down to pricing, honestly, but because CPOs often are more expensive. So you kind of just have to run the math yourself and say, okay, I'm paying an X premium for CPO over non-CPO. How much is it going to cost for maintenances? What are the things I'm concerned about? What are the things that are known issues on this car that maybe a CPO warranty would cover that I'm not getting on this non-CPO car. Also, oftentimes CPO cars have better interest rates. So you also got to do that kind of math. If you have a great interest rate on your own from a credit union or something like that, that might not be of value to you. But again, if you are buying a car in particular, especially a car that might have some warranty claims, or need a warranty, again, like the German stuff in particular, CPO is great. Then you get the better interest rate. If you calculate out, what would I be paying on an interest on a non-CPO car, that might make the premium worth it on its own. Or, if I want to go buy a warranty, I want to go buy, or have, a higher finance rate elsewhere, and crunch those numbers and say, okay, well, what is this premium? And am I actually saving money on a non-CPO versus CPO? And then once you get to the real cost difference of two cars, one CPO and one not, that's when you then say, okay, am I willing to pay this premium? Or maybe there isn't a premium, or figure out exactly, where you fall there and, what your risk tolerance is. Some people don't need a warranty. Other people, having a warranty really brings them peace of mind. It just comes down to, again, the car you're buying, your personal preference, your risk tolerance, all that stuff. But that would be, at least my overanalyzing brain, that's what I would be thinking about if I'm weighing the decision of a CPO versus non-CPO. And it's tough. Like, I mean, there was one example, before I got the Fiat here, I was kicking around the idea of a older used Mini Cooper again, like the F56, I think is what they're called, the current or the prior generation, not the R56, but the most recent generation here before the brand new ones that just came out. Some of those you can get like a non-CPO one for 10 to 15 grand for a nice one, like not an amazing one, but like a decent one. But CPO only goes like 3 or 4 years old. And so, there's a big jump there, and it's still a really reliable car for those newest minis, for example. I'd like to have a warranty, and it's a German vehicle, so it could have some issues, but they, again, have a pretty proven track record. So like a car like that, if I'm paying 10 to 15 for a non-CPO, and the cheapest CPOs out there, because they're newer and lower mileage, are 20 grand plus, then that might be like, even with the higher interest rate, even with the risk, am I really, coming out ahead here? I think you have a huge enough savings still. Maybe in that case, you don't go CPO. But again, it all comes down to exactly what age vehicle you're looking at and what, again, how that all falls. So it's just crunching the numbers and figuring out what works best for you. So hopefully that helps you a little bit there. I appreciate the hearts and the 100s. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Hopefully that's a good bit of tip, for anyone shopping around. But Decepticon, thanks so much for saying hi. And Harsh just says all subcompacts should be electric, given their small size, and EV would be good. Yeah, that's another thing I think would be good. But the thing about subcompacts that's also nice is that they are pretty simple. Oftentimes the motors aren't super powerful. You don't need to have a bunch of punch. EV is certainly great for those, like Chevy Bolt's a prime example. But I think also having, a cheap little gas engine, keeping the cost down, is the really important thing with subcompacts. I think that's, again, we don't have that cost parity yet with EVs. So I think that's one big perk why I think subcompacts being gas makes the most sense right now. Because if you had, like, for example, Nissan Versa, and you made that electric, it's not going to be 20 grand anymore. It's not going to be 23, you're probably easy 25, 30. Look at Leaf. Leaf is kind of that in a way. And, they're over $30,000 still basically. So that's kind of the problem, with the cheaper stuff. But whenever you're talking about more expensive stuff, or there's that less of a price sensitive buyer, that's where I think EV especially, kind of makes the more sense there if you're swapping powertrains. And Fuchs says, expectation, make foreign cars expensive so people will buy American. Reality, American cars are not built in America, and even if they do, they will increase the price for more profit. Ding, 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 ding. That's correct. Yeah, there's so many expectations. I won't go down the rabbit hole, but, again, I am fully convinced that, either these things don't happen and we dodge a bullet, or they do happen and it'll be a learning experience that I think a lot of the country needs. And, I'd love to be wrong. I hope that everything works out the way everyone's dreaming it will on that side of the aisle. But, yeah, I have full confidence to sit back and let it play out if it needs to. Cause I think in a lot of things, again, we don't learn from history. We don't learn from our mistakes in the past, like, again, the COVID supply chain stuff. And so I guess, instead of trying to wrestle the wheel away from the reckless driver, we just let them crash. And I really, that's how I'm looking at things right now with these tariffs, is like, if they want to crash the car, let them crash the car. They need to crash the car and experience that, and then figure it out, from there. It's going to be uncomfortable for all of us, obviously, but I think, sometimes you just need to crash that car. If for sometimes that's all, the only thing that slows down a reckless driver, or the only thing that, I mean, I know there's, a lot of teenagers that think they're invincible, and, they speed and speed and speed until they wreck a car, or they get a huge speeding ticket, or lose their license or whatever, and sometimes people have to learn the hard way. And I kind of feel that way about tariffs. If people want to try it out, try it out. And, again, I hope it works out better than we're all fearing, or some of us are fearing. But, I'm truly like, let them crash the car, as much as I don't want that to happen. But anyway, let me see here. Trent Car Guy says, I wouldn't have been too upset to see the Charger Challenger 300 go hybrid, especially for people who live in apartments or housing communities, and you don't want to anger your neighbors too much. Yeah, it's, all those cars are really, really good cars, but I feel like, a lot of cars, as they get to older part of their lifespan, that's when you get the questionable mods, and you get, the more obnoxious behavior. I mean, there was even just this past week, someone in, and not a cheap car. It was a Hellcat Red Eye. But it was apparently some like young kid who was just flying way too fast, and a Hellcat split the car in half around a telephone pole, I think, or a tree or something like that. And it's it's not fun to see. I mean, I love Chargers and Challengers, but it just like, it seems to attract a certain buyer that, again, they're drawn into that, kind of crazy behavior, and the car lives up to that, but it also can bite back, as many people have found out, and many people will continue to find out. But I do love all those cars still, nonetheless. Mr. 705 says, I'm looking forward to the redesigned Ridgeline. I wish it was coming out this year. I'm just hoping the probe doesn't change much versus the current truck. So I mean, yeah, as far as Ridgeline, I'm sure it's gonna just be Passport, with a bed on the back. That's, knowing Honda. I mean, I was honestly surprised how much Passport changed over Pilot. So I have to give them, I guess, a little more credit, but I wouldn't expect anything more than that. And so if that sounds good to you, then wait for that. Absolutely. And I think it's going to be nice, if they do in fact do that, and maybe they'll surprise us with a few more innovative things like they did with the Ridgeline for this past generation, with the cool, bed storage and all that. Maybe they'll come up with some cool new ideas. I'm looking forward to it as well. And OG says, is it justifiable to own an EV if there's a charger at my job but not home? That comes down to how much driving you do. That is actually the best scenario, because then you're not even paying for electricity, which is like, you are really winning the game there. Because I mean, even here, the Mach-E, I pay $8 to charge it up or whatever at home. I never do a full charge, so I've never like exactly calculated, but it's like, it hardly messes with my electric bill. But if you're not even seeing a jump in your electric bill, yeah, absolutely. That's the way to do it. As long as that's enough juice, and you have a battery pack that's big enough to do all of your other driving you need to do. It's also, I don't know what your living situation is, Skywalker, but even if you can just charge it up on a slow 110, if you have a just regular power outlet, either if you have it in a garage or even in a driveway, if you can just plug it into a regular, outlet, just to give you some juice, even if you do a ton of miles and you're doing most of that fast charging at work, and getting you most of the way, it's just still nice to be able to, get you by on the regular 110. And that's honestly, like the Mach-E, we don't have a level 2 charger. It's plugged into the regular wall outlet. And that's been enough to keep up with us with our daily driving the Mach-E. I mean, thankfully we live pretty close to everything here. If we drive more than 30 miles a day, I'd say that's, usually that's about the limit, 30 or 40 miles, sometimes a little more, but we've had no problems keeping up on the regular plug. And that's one thing I think a lot of people don't realize. People always think, oh, I got to go and spend thousands of dollars on this charger and all this stuff. You don't need to, unless you do a ton of driving. Because anytime the car is sitting, it can be charging. As long as there's an outlet nearby, anytime that car is not moving, it can be refueling itself, which is the really nice thing about EVs that, again, doesn't get enough credit, I think. So I think if you can plug in, or if, again, the battery pack's enough to charge it at work, then I think absolutely that is definitely the way to go about it. And EVs are, again, no oil changes, no other issues. I think it's great, especially for just a little commuter beater car. If you're not going to do long road trips in it, even if you do road trips, it's fine. You just got to plan it. But if you're not, especially, just great commuter cars for sure. And let me see here. 814 says, I do have the Nautilus. Absolutely love it. I was in a hurry, or I totally would have said hi. Would have loved to see it. Well, all good then. But glad the Nautilus is doing well, hopefully. And yeah, if you ever see me around any other time, feel free to always say hi. It's always was nice chatting with you there at the airport. Always happy to chat again. And PK says the special car looks really sick. Hope it gets good views. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope so too. Yeah, those kinds of things are always a gamble. Typically, those kinds of vehicles don't get views for me because it's just unrelatable, and people just, they roll their eyes at it. It doesn't help anyone. It's not buying advice, but if you like my reactions, definitely stay tuned for that one for sure. Yeah, the spoiler I will say is, I think it was actually one of my best reactions, at least in the past year. Might even be longer than that, since I've had a reaction that good, in my opinion. But you can be the judge of that here in about a week and a half. And Justin says, have you heard about Honda and other vehicles being targeted for their airbags? I own a 2023 Civic, and multiple people in my Civic Facebook group have been victims of it. Interesting. I hadn't heard about that. I mean, I guess, nothing surprises me anymore, but I guess maybe they're easier to steal, because why don't people steal airbags out of everything? Like, why is it just Civics? That's kind of strange. But I know they're more expensive. Maybe that's part of it. They're more valuable because I know those new Hondas have the more advanced airbags, and I'm guessing maybe they're more expensive. So maybe that's it. I don't know. I hadn't heard about that, so thanks for bringing that to my attention. And yeah, I hope you can keep yours safe. That might actually be one of the rare instances. I'm not sure if you can get one of those like old club things. I'm talking about. I don't know how old, if you remember clubs like I do, that were very popular in, I think, the 80s and 90s. It's a big metal bar, goes across your steering wheel. Sometimes they droop a little bit, so I don't know if they fully would cover your airbag enough to stop someone from taking it out of the vehicle. I feel like there also were like airbag lock kind of things at some point. I'm not sure if that's still a thing, or if that ever was, or if I'm imagining that. But I feel like if the club doesn't do it to like lock that out with a physical key to like block that, then yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's some device. If not, if this becomes an actual problem that sticks around, then maybe someone should design that and patent that. There's a free idea for you. Someone come up with an airbag lock that like goes around the steering wheel spokes or something and locks in your airbag to prevent it from theft. And you just unlock it every day, chuck it on the floor, and then put it back on whenever you park at night or whatever. But crazy. Also, Vishal says, have you seen that Honda and Toyota sport trim wheels are often stolen? I hadn't heard that either. I'm out of the loop, I guess, on theft. I don't know why. That's unfortunate. I don't know. Maybe Pittsburgh is like somehow insulated from this or something. I don't know, but I never like hear about stolen stuff in my area, honestly. And I haven't, and I just don't pay attention to more of the national news as far as theft. I should, I guess, but that's crazy. And yeah, best of luck to everyone out there that has to unfortunately street park or park in a driveway. Yeah, hope your cars continue to stay safe. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, what do I do with my 2019 Mustang GT while on a road trip? I put the fob in a small candy tin that fits in my coat pocket. Interesting. Oh, that's cool. That's really smart. I didn't know that worked. That's great. Okay, well, there you go. Great advice, a little hack from B. Mitchell there. That's a great idea. Thanks for sharing. Linda says, my husband still loves her 2004. It has a real key. The paint and the interior are like new. That's awesome for her LS. That's great. And Harsh says, the irony with Toyota is that people complain that they do not innovate enough. When they finally got a new engine, people complained they're unreliable and want the old V8s and V6s. Yep, that's it. It's one of the things you can't make them happy either way, And this is also why, it's good to listen to feedback, and I'm happy when companies do, but sometimes that can screw you. I think that's what happened with Camaro. I think they listened to the enthusiasts too much, and they made it too much of a sports car when it needed to be softer, it needed to be bigger, and they didn't do that. And I think that Toyota might be kind of a victim of that same kind of thing. I'm like, okay, well, everyone wants us to innovate. Well, we got tons of money to innovate. Let's innovate. And then they do, and then everyone complains about it. It's also, I think it's been a long time since, Toyota did a new engine. And so I think there's always usually small teething issues with a lot of this stuff. And, you might even have a bad rap for a year or two, but, hopefully time will prove these motors to be solid and reliable. I mean, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I mean, like, I have full confidence in Tacoma. I mean, I listened to the lead engineer talk to us in person and say, like, look, like, this motor is stout. Like, it passed their regular stringent Toyota reliability tests, which are very, high, obviously, because everyone expects the Toyota to be reliable anyway. And then it passed their commercial duty testing as well. So people want to trash talk, new Tacoma and stuff. Excuse me, that motor has passed commercial testing. And that's not a given, I don't think, for any of the other motors that competes with. So, I think it's solid engineering. Maybe again, like with the V6 one, they had the issues on the production line for the Tundra. That's a production line issue of just like there was literal debris on the production line that caused crap to get into those engines. And I think that's the only reason why they failed. It's not like there's even any engineering issues. It's just, contamination or whatever. So, I think hopefully time will show these new Toyota motors to be just as reliable as the old ones, but we'll have to wait and see. And Shane says TFL did release a video within the last few days on the MT1 full electric mini truck, up to 500 horsepower, 350 miles of range, drop down mid gate for up to 7 feet 2 inches of space, starting at 41 grand. Yeah, I completely missed that. I don't know. That's cool. That sounds awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I missed that. Thanks for letting me know about that, guys. It's an EV startup. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds great. That's awesome. If it actually passed crash testing and all that stuff as well, that sounds, that would be exactly what I think what a lot of people were looking for these days. That's great to see. Almost kind of sounds somewhat like the kind of stuff I've been talking about, of doing like a basic kind of vehicle for people who don't need to have some gigantic, crazy thing with a million features. And that sounds like that could be kind of it. That's really smart. And Dylan says, hey, Matt, do you see the Hemi V8 making a return for Dodge and Ram cars and trucks? Ram, definitely. I think it certainly is going to come back to the 1500. As far as, other Dodge products, I don't know. I mean, I had one of the engineers from the Charger EV on the launch event. We asked them, like, me and a couple of other journalists were like, does it fit? And he said no. So I don't know. I mean, there's talk that there's new V8s at Dodge. Maybe those ones fit. And maybe he's true. Maybe he's being truthful that the old ones just don't fit. Maybe he's just bluffing as well because he doesn't want to say too much. I don't know. But, as far as my knowledge, the V8s don't fit in the Charger from an OEM standpoint. Now, obviously, yes, you can hack one up. You can put a blower or, have a huge cutout in the hood that makes it look like Dom's Charger from Fast and Furious. You can hack it up, however, and fit it in there. You can fit it. I'm sure you can fit anything in anything if you have enough money and insanity to go for it. But, from a factory OEM, like, this has to work with everything. This has to, pass pedestrian safety standards and all this other stuff. Does it fit with all those criteria? According to them, no. Is there, again, a new V8 maybe cooking that could fit? Maybe. But, I think the V8 thing for Charger, maybe it will come, or maybe they're still working on it either way. But I think that it will come down to how the inline six is received this summer. If the big problem with Charger is just that it's electric, then okay, cool. Well, we got a kick-ass, inline six, bulletproof motor, they're ready to go. That's, does truck duty, already has crate motor versions that are 1,000 horsepower and all this. If that motor is satisfactory for enough people. Obviously, some people will still complain about the sound, but if that is, it's still, okay, it's gas now, so there's your worries gone about that. And it's got mod potential. It's more power than you got out of the old V8s anyway. If that's enough for enough people, that sales do well, then I think they may just stick with that. But if that also, doesn't do anything, then I could see, them just having a real, kind of soul searching moment and say, all right, well, what do we got to do to make this work? Or, do we just build some motor from the ground up and fit it in there and do what people want? It's a real gamble. And I've really feel bad for Dodge because, again, what's the world going to be like in 4 years? Are we going to get back to the Biden administration, standards for fuel economy here in 2029 if someone new gets elected that's not wanting to do all the same stuff that Trump's doing? And that's the thing, is all these product cycles are 5 years or more, and development times are oftentimes 5 years or so. You can't engineer a car for a president, and so that's really the risk. Is it's a gamble. Where do you think the country's going? Where do you think the world's going? And I think that you look at the world, it's electrified, and Dodge got out ahead of that. They're taking it on the chin right now, but they may end up coming out ahead in the long run if they stick with it. Maybe not. We'll have to see. But I mean, like, Rivian CEO is convinced. They're like, everyone that's going to backpedal, everyone that's going to go back to the gas is going to get caught with their pants down in 2030 or whatever, because there's still going to be stuff getting electrified. And then all of a sudden you're behind on all your tech. And now you got to buy tech from other people because you weren't working on battery packs. You weren't working on electric motors. You weren't working on electric platforms. And it's a real danger these companies could fall into of, finding themselves with cars that are just looking like antiques compared to the modern stuff that the companies that continue to innovate, that continue to pursue this futuristic stuff, there's going to be a giant gap of, you're going to have the ancient stuff, and then you're going to have the cutting edge state of the art stuff that's super impressive, that's way faster, that's way cheaper to run, whatever the case is, all these things. So we'll have to wait and see. But I feel so bad for every executive in every car company, especially after this past week. I want to send them all a giant bottle of Canadian whiskey, not American whiskey. Anyway, let me see here. Where are we? So I see Chase says, in regards to his earlier super chat about the Armada, he says, for cross shopping, Armada, Expedition, Tahoe, I wish Toyota would have made the Sequoia with larger cargo space behind the third row. I know that's a car that can't get redone fast enough. Sequoia, they gotta do something fast. Take the learnings from Grand Highlander, that that thing has been a home run, and literally put Grand Highlander on a body on frame platform and call it Sequoia. And, you basically have a home run there. That's, I think, what they need to do. And hopefully they do that quick, sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, if those are the three you're considering, yeah, honestly, I'd probably rather do Expedition or Tahoe. Again, depending on your preferences. But yeah, definitely test drive the Armada. I test drive them all, see what you think. Everyone likes different things, has different preferences. But hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me see here. We are coming up on time, I think, here. So I'm going to do the last few member questions, get caught up on those. And then I see V Metro City spotted a nice original 57 GMC. That's awesome. With a burbling exhaust. Let me see. Van Allen says, here I am still driving pretty old vehicles. My wife drives a 2010 Ford Edge. I drive a 2012 Volkswagen Jetta TDI manual transmission. That's awesome. Now we just paid off our 2016 F350 Power Stroke that we bought in 2020. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you're sitting in a really good spot. All those vehicles, I have confidence to last the next 5 years. Should be nice and cheap to insure for the most part, maybe excluding the F350. But and the Jetta, that manual diesel should run until the end of time. Yeah, I think you're set. Nothing wrong with old cars. If you enjoy them and you like them, absolutely stick with it. Save yourself a boatload of money. I see Blake was asking thoughts on the Tacoma powertrain. We ended up stumbling into that anyway. So hope that answers your question there, Blake. And let me see. Doug says, don't forget to drop a like. I appreciate that. Yeah, I always appreciate the likes there for the stream here. Maybe someday the streams will grow, but I'm happy with always the interactions we have here are always great. And let me see. Chad says, thanks ahead of time for the car crash nightmares. Congrats on number 100. I apologize for that. But yeah, thank you so much for the congrats there. And let me see. So we're talking about all this stuff with Skywalker. Also, Costco, I see, has a good question. He's asking, he says, I keep resisting Porsche. I feel alienated from the brand because of its cachet. I don't want to be seen in one. I'm happy to be seen in a classic NSX, but not a 911. Your thoughts? Honestly, I don't. I know there is a stigma around 911s and Porsches in general. I don't hate them. I actually really like Porsche as a brand. I wouldn't be opposed to owning one if I had the means myself. But obviously classic NSX, I think, has the potential to show you might have a bit more taste and, be a little bit more out of the ordinary for sure. But I mean, Porsches are really good and they are very good. They're famous because of it. And, they know what they're doing. And there's a reason why they're so loved. These days, I don't think anyone really, I think there used to be some older, annoyances about this owner, that owner, this, that, or the other. I think these days it's just like, as long as you're not in a Cybertruck or a Tesla, everyone else is on easy street as far as, stigmas and, all these other things. I really, maybe I'm again out of the loop on car culture, but I don't see people hating on anything. The general public's just, again, hating on the Teslas. But other than that, I think everything else, it's very minor, if at all, an issue. But Skywalker says, what's a good entry-level EV for a solo apartment dweller in Texas? I mean, it really comes down to what, is the cheapest one in your area. I'm not sure what the deals are in Texas. Definitely check out the lease deals, get that way you get the $7,500 tax credit. There's a bunch. Apartment dweller, I'd say you're probably gonna want something with a bigger battery pack that charges fast if you need to fast charge it. So to me, my top picks for you would probably be Ioniq 6, Ioniq 5 from Hyundai, because you have really fast charging, pretty good lease rates, pretty cheap, solid vehicles, and that way, if you are in a pinch and you gotta fast charge it, which I wouldn't recommend because it's expensive and it's a pain, only really worth doing in a pinch. I would not get an EV if you need to rely on public fast charging. But if you can charge at work, then that's enough to get you by with all your driving for the week. I'd go for one of the bigger battery Hyundais, because then you have a lot of range, to get around Texas, fast DC charging if you need it, and really solid vehicles that are also very well done. So I think those are probably the top recommendations I'd have for you. Obviously, there's other things out there. And again, it's down to, your personal preferences and what you're willing to put up with. Model 3s are dirt cheap right now because everyone's dumping them like, they're just the worst thing ever. So, I mean, they're good cars. Unfortunately, just soiled by, a crappy executive. But, if that doesn't bother you, then, you can get a Model 3 for nothing right now. People will literally bend over backwards to sell you a Model 3 for whatever price you're willing to take it off their lot for, I think. So, that's probably, if that doesn't bother you, that works too. They get a long range one. But I personally wouldn't own a Tesla just because I've been seeing so many horror stories about people getting their cars graffitied, I was talking to another journalist that has a Model 3, and he's like, I feel like I have to wear a paper bag on my head when I drive because I get so many people flipping me off, giving me, Nazi salutes and all this other stuff. Like that's, a real issue for a lot of Tesla owners. And so I wouldn't recommend a Tesla just because of the harassment right now. But if that doesn't bother you, that's a insane deal right now. But yeah, I'd go for the Hyundais personally. I think they're probably the best bet. All right, we'll try and wrap it up here with the last few. So, Cara says, I sent you the email with a link about the Aptera solar car, including how I configured it for 28. According to the website, news updates, and YouTube channel, they're making a lot of progress. That's great. Well, I'm absolutely rooting. A solar car sounds fantastic, especially in Sunbelt states. I can see that making a ton of sense if they actually can get the efficiency and the charging up. on that. That sounds great. And I mean, I was so impressed. Even I had the Prius Prime like I don't know 2 years ago or something now, and I had the one with the solar roof option, and just that little solar roof on the Prime sitting out in my driveway. I think I was getting something like 4 miles a day, out of the solar, in the middle of the summer, just sitting in the driveway, baking. And that could be enough, if you live again in a city or something like that. That's enough to get you to the grocery store. That's enough to do, at least a lot of your driving electrically if you again don't do long drives. And so yeah, I love the idea of solar if they can actually get it to a point where it's viable. And Harsha says, with Saturn, Pontiac, and all the other GM brands that were around in the 2000s, by the end of their lifetime, they were end up being rebadged GM products. Now, a lot of companies have luxury trim levels of their models instead of having separate brands. Right. Yeah, and I think that kind of made sense. I think that's why GM realized they kind of were just spread a little too thin with all the brands, as sad as it was. I still think Pontiac had a solid future as a Dodge competitor, but it is what it is. Stratus is asking how the Fiat is. It's doing great. It hasn't really moved in the past week here, aside from it got kicked out of the garage for the special car that I had this past week that I'll talk about soon. But other than moving it around my driveway to make room for the garaged vehicle for that week, otherwise it's been sitting, hasn't been driven at all. I'm still waiting to get the plates in and get all that so I can get it inspected and everything. So it's just sitting in the garage, which is what it was exactly designed to do, be a cheap backup car that mostly never moves. And let me see. Jordan says, thanks, Matt. Chad introduced me to the channel. 100th Live is awesome. Still holding out hope for a production, a Ford Lithium, and actual four-door Mustang. I hope at least four-door Mustang, I think, is a good chance upcoming. And yeah, I'm so thankful that Chad introduced you to the channel way back when, and glad you guys are enjoying it. And Organic says, Matt, are you still in PA? Yep, still in Pittsburgh here. Fook says, which one the most expensive press car you've had or the cheapest lease on the market was in your garage last week? I just answered that there. The most expensive press car ever for sure. Definitely, yeah, that little Fiat got kicked out immediately. But now it's back in there nice and cozy. But Vishal says, yes, any sport trim Honda SE or XSE trim Toyota, the wheels are stolen. The subreddits for Civic, Corolla, Camry, and Accord have frequent posts of their wheels getting stolen. Man, that's crazy. I'm so thankful I have a garage. I know that is a very, very nice luxury, and I know not everyone can have a garage, but man, that is got to be so terrifying to worry about your car getting screwed with every night. Any of you that have to deal with that, you have my sympathy. That's rough. And hopefully, again, it's rare and doesn't happen very often. But this is another great reason why, if you can have a vehicle that has dash cams, or because a lot of them you can still run them off like an external battery pack and run them off, like a giant, power brick or something like that whenever the car's not running, stuff like that to maybe try and catch some of these idiots that are these low lifes that are stealing crap. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't get any worse. If the cost of living goes up, you might see a lot more theft in the future. We'll see. Anyway, Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, what if the big three sent a US mailed survey? I'm not sure what the question is there as far as feedback or what, but there is a lot of market research that gets done. It's very expensive, and actually, I'm going to be doing some market research. I think because about the Fiat, I got reached out to do just like a market research kind of response thing where they pay me for my time to give my thoughts on, I guess, my purchasing experience. I don't know what they're going to be asking me yet, and I am under an NDA whenever I do actually do it. But yeah, I'm going to be doing some market research stuff as well, and it's kind of interesting. I'll be curious to see, what they're asking me and what they're, looking to get from me as far as answers and stuff. So that'll be interesting. But anyway, let me see here, wrapping it up. Dylan says EV vehicles is a problem when it comes to water. We had some EV owners in Florida end up with their Teslas catching fire. Yeah, so that has been something that's circulated and has certainly been circulated a lot. That's a very rare thing. Typically, in order for a EV to catch fire because of water, one has to be salt water because only salt water reacts with the battery pack there. And even then, typically the battery pack either has to have a leak or there has to be some type of crack or some other issue that causes it to catch fire. Typically, that's not normal behavior. Car companies do engineer for these types of things. So it is more so a fluke, not a consistent, repeatable thing that happens every time you put an EV in salt water, from my understanding. But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, if that's a common thing, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty rare. Yeah, from my experience of seeing that. But anyway, I see everyone's saying good night here. And Jordan, feel free if you had any follow-up questions about your last super chat there, definitely let me know. But Sandeep's asking X5M or RSQ8. I'd go RSQ8 because it's more comfortable. I did a review on both of them, and I compare both of them in my X5M review, so definitely check that out if you haven't. But I'd go RSQ8 personally. And I see Costco agrees with that. But all right, well, I think we have caught up here. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for hanging here tonight. Hope you all have a great week ahead. At least we don't have to worry about any tariff talk, hopefully, until, April 2nd, I think. So hopefully we can just kind of deal with, everything else in the world in the meantime. And hope everyone, again, if you want to buy a car, buy it this month for sure. Get it while you can. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more good stuff here this week on the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for sticking with me through the audio issues as well. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.